Wagwan Jamaica, welcome back to another episode of Centrally Speaking, your favorite television show.
Centrally Speaking is a program that opens up the conversation around important matters of economics and finance, matters of national importance that have an impact on your life. I am Sheena.
And I'm Anna. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Centrally Speaking. And for the first time, viewers, we're glad for soon. Oh, it takes so long, Jesus, but we're glad you're here.
All right, so Anna, today we will be speaking with a representative from the Jamaica Bankers Association.
Yes.
So we'll learn a little bit more about what they're doing. What do you know about the Jamaica Bankers Association?
So the Jamaica Bankers Association is a non-profit organization representing the interests of commercial and merchant banks, and they ensure that your money is safe, secure, and they ensure a vibrant banking industry.
All right, so you have an idea, but we have invited Chauntelle Gordon, a member of the association's compliance committee, to tell us a little bit more about what the Jamaica Bankers Association does.
Right, so Chauntelle will be talking about Simplified Customer Due Diligence, CDD, those requirements of opening a Jamaican bank account. You know, it's a hot button topic in Jamaica, but Chauntelle will tell us a little bit more about it. Some good news.
Before we get to Chauntelle's interview, let's hear from the streets.
When did Bank of Jamaica achieve independence?
C, I would say C.
I would pick C.
I don't know, you know, Jamaica independence alone me, you know, so August 6, 1962.
I think it's B, I'm not sure.
It couldn't be 1962. That's when Jamaica became independent.
But I'll go 1975. Reason being, me I go with 1975 with A.
The August 6th December General.
Why that year?
Why that year? Because that's the year Jamaica gained independence, I think, in August.
I'm gonna work with the independence year, 1962.
B.
Why you think it's B?
I don't know, it's a lucky guess.
I'm gonna say D. I'm right?
You are right.
What am I get? No? Really?
We're here to open a savings account for my son John. I really want him to start saving and managing his own money.
And I need for safe to visit my father in New York.
Okay, based on what you said and our risk assessment, he will qualify for Simplified Customer Due Diligence requirements. I'll need your ID, proof of income, TRN, and John's ID as well.
Okay, here you go.
Opening an account is easier than you think using Simplified Customer Due Diligence requirements, also called CDD.
Thanks for staying with us here on Centrally Speaking. Our guest, Chauntelle Gordon, a representative of the Jamaica Bankers Association, is here with us today. She is a member of the Compliance Committee. Ms. Gordon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
All right. So as a rule of thumb, you know, if you're a new guest to Centrally Speaking, you have to tell us which high school did you attend and from which parish?
Which parish you're from?
Right.
Well, I'm from the parish of St. Andrew, and I went to the fabulous Campion College.
Okay.
Campion, yes. Yes. So welcome to the program.
Thank you.
To start us off, Chauntelle, what is customer due diligence? It sounds big, it sounds serious, but I'm sure you'll explain it, break it down for us. And what does the JBA want the public to understand about due diligence, customer due diligence?
Well, let me first say it's not rocket science, but it's really a matter of us obtaining and verifying certain information about a client. And we seek to answer 4 basic questions, getting us to who, the why, the how, and of course the when. Let me break it down a little further for you. The who is where we establish the identity of the client. And we do so by obtaining certain identifications for the particular client. We look at the source of wealth, the source of funds, and of course we verify their proof of residence and occupation. So in terms of the why, that is really the purpose for establishing the account. It could be for salary, it could be for your business operations, or it could be for obtaining a loan. Of course, the how is how this account will be funded, because you know persons will deposit accounts because it's a matter of how it could be done. It could be done through salary, it could be transfers, and of course this is where we establish the expected activity levels And the last part in terms of the frequency, the how, that is really how this account will be done. So for example, a customer who is a salaried employee would expect over a particular period, probably monthly or fortnightly, that these accounts will be remitted to their particular account.
Okay, so that concludes the due diligence process. Who, what, where, how.
All right, so in order for you spoke about the different aspects, which is the who, the how, the when, and the what.
Yes.
Right, all right, which means you need to have some knowledge of your customer.
That's true. That's correct.
So, know your customer. Can you tell us a little bit about the simplified version of this due diligence for opening an account at a commercial bank?
As part of a financial inclusion strategy, we want to try to reach the unbanked and unserved. And to facilitate this, we have seen a change in the legislation. That's a Proceeds of Crime Act. And this allowed banks to establish a risk-based approach. With this approach, persons or entities that fall within the lower risk category will be able to apply simplified due diligence measures. So persons who would typically fall within this are persons who are recipients of the Government of Jamaica benefits. So persons who are, for example, on the PATH program, persons who have received NIS benefits, etc. And pensioners, etc. So what we see that those persons we can reach and establish these simplified accounts for, and to basically indicate that only 2 documentary requirements are expected. That's your tax registration number as well as your government issued ID. And of course, there's a very small minimum balance that you're asked to open the account
like
with.
$1,000?
It could be a little low as probably $100.
Okay.
Right, so it's a great initiative that we think more persons are actually coming on board with that.
You spoke about 3 different risk profiles, low, medium, and high.
Yeah.
Can you share with us maybe different persons or categories of persons who would fall within each?
Right, so for the high risk, you may have persons who are in terms of what we call PEPs, politically exposed individuals, persons who are non-residents, typically would fall within this category.
Don't live in
Don't
Jamaica.
live in Jamaica, right?
But are Jamaicans? Or
for anybody who is a non-resident, typically, but of course this is also subject to other analysis that is conducted by the entity. So persons in the medium risk is pretty much in the in-between stage of the low and the high, but I'll delve more in terms of the lower risk category here. So typically probably your gardener or your helper, on persons who are getting a certain amount of income over salaried persons. You may also have persons who have their own business and are self-employed, a hairdresser or a barber, that may fall within that remit of lower risk category.
All right, so you had pretty much touched on why this was done, but can you explain for the viewers why is it called simplified? Is it because there are less documents required?
Certainly.
And it is only 2 pieces, right?
It is only 2 pieces
and which 2 are those?
It is your TRN, the tax registration number, and your government issued ID.
That's all you need.
That is, of course, your driver's license, your passport, or your voter's ID, or what we call your national ID.
Okay, so before that you used to need blood type, grandmother name, you know. Used to difficult.
Lineage and ancestry. And that was really because of the legislation and KY requirements that we had at that time.
Okay. So now the laws have made it easier to open accounts.
Certainly.
Okay, cool.
All right, so you spoke to it being a solution. So of course, with any good solution, there must have been a challenge which led to that. All right, so what were some of the challenges which led to
And I spoke to it previously in terms of the number of documentary requirements.
Okay.
When you needed a reference, you needed proof of income, proof of your address, you need a utility bill, and of course, certain persons would not normally have those at their disposal. So with this simplified process, it's also quick and easy to open and establish these accounts.
So it's less time, less cumbersome,
and more convenient.
And
by quick we mean like one day?
It could be I would say 24 hours.
24
you could have a
hours.
turnaround in some instances.
Right.
But this is, of course, based on all information you have provided to the institutions.
Okay, and this is for every bank?
I would say typically,
Yes.
but there may be exceptions to the rule.
Okay, cool. So are people receiving these simplified accounts favorably?
Certainly.
Yeah.
We have seen great interest in terms of the persons, and we've seen a number of customers coming in to establish those accounts.
Okay.
All right, so you've seen a number of customers. So essentially what you're saying is as a result of the simplified KYC, you're seeing more customers coming in too.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yes, that has actually spanned a great interest. And this was, of course, as a result from 2020 when the government of Jamaica had the COVID initiative in terms of a CARES program. So persons were able to receive those grants utilizing those bank accounts opened to establish those funds.
Okay. Are these simplified accounts subject to a limit, a transaction limit?
Yes,
Right.
actually there are certain banks that have typically restriction in terms of the transaction activity that you can have. Of course, it's a simplified low-risk account.
Right.
So you certainly could not have high-risk activity in terms of, for example, your wire transfers.
Wire transfers, right?
Of course, there are perhaps limits in terms of the value. Some customers or some banks could only allow up to probably a 200,000 personal accounts.
Personal.
But we've seen where these accounts have been established for both personal and business accounts. For business accounts, you would of course have a higher limit in terms of those transactions, and it will vary from institution to institution.
And for the viewers, you can still do the online banking with a simplified account. You can still send via RTGS, ACH. You can get debit cards.
It all depends on the institution. There may be limitations in terms of what sort of activity.
Yeah.
It will vary from institution to institution.
Okay.
But in terms of opening these accounts, it allows you access to be able to utilize certain transactions online.
Right.
You can start the process online. You can actually schedule an appointment.
Yes.
And come in the branch and finalize and complete that exercise.
Okay.
So Chauntelle, you're basically saying that the farmer, the barber, the hairdresser, the bag juice seller can tomorrow go to any bank, commercial bank of their choice, and open an account, and it will be simple and easy as long as they meet the requirements that you outlined earlier?
Certainly, Sheena. Any of those persons you mentioned can come in and open one of these accounts. Of course, these accounts have certain restrictions in terms of the maximum values and also the expected flows that you can have with these accounts. I also want to add that most recently, the Minister of Finance announced in Parliament that the first 100,000 clients that come in and establish these simplified accounts would benefit from a grant of $2,500. So I encourage persons to take advantage of this opportunity and open their account, and this is since April 1, 2022.
All right, as usual, that was a very good discussion with Chauntelle Gordon. She's a member of the Compliance Committee of the Jamaica Bankers Association, telling us that, you know what, do it? A TRN and idea do it, you know, as simple as that. That's your simplified account opening under the new KYC requirements. Chauntelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. It has been my pleasure. It was a pleasure having you.
The world's most expensive coin. A coin worth 5 cents US is the world's most expensive coin. The 1913 Liberty Head nickel is one of only 5 ever produced. The US officially stopped making Liberty Head nickels in 1912, but an employee at the US Mint, Samuel Brown, made 5 more in 1913 to create collector's items. Brown sold them, and eventually, in 1962, one ended up in the possession of a man named George Walton, who, while on his way to a coin show, his car crashed and burst into flames, killing him. However, the coin was found, and appraisers gave it to his sister, Melva Gibbons, but told her it was fake because the coins were discontinued in 1912 and the date on the coin found was 1913. Gibbons kept the coin for decades in a closet. She passed it down to her heirs, and in 2003, when a reward was offered for the lost nickel at the American Numismatics Association's World Fair of Money in Baltimore, her heirs had the coin reappraised. It was revealed the coin is authentic, one of the only 5 1930 Liberty Head nickels ever made. Only 2 more of this particular coin are in private hands. The others are in museums, including the Smithsonian. In 2013, the lost nickel went up for sale at a coin convention, where it was sold for over $3 million.
More Centrally Speaking in a minute.
Whether you're a smart farmer, street vendor, big investor, every entrepreneur, you got to wise up about your money. You have to make sure say your money secure. When you need to grow, you have access to more.
Financial inclusion means that individuals and businesses have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs.
Access to more money, more credit, whatever your business needs. When you work hard for your money must work for you.
On this week's show, we heard from the Jamaica Bankers Association and what it takes to open a bank account. Let's review the key points from that discussion. Number 1, due diligence is a process that involves reviewing and analyzing information to verify facts about an existing customer or a potential customer. Number 2, financial institutions conduct assessments on their existing and potential clients to determine customer profile to ascertain the risk category in which the customer falls. Number 3, Know Your Customer Simplified Due Diligence is a great initiative that allows for a much easier way for persons to open accounts. These are probably persons who would not have normally qualified. Number 4, customers have welcomed the implementation of these simplified accounts and have established these accounts for both personal and business use. And number 5, the Jamaica Bankers Association has seen growth in accounts opened under the simplified process, and they anticipate further growth. And that's it for our Fast Facts.
So, we've come to the end of another program. You change your mind about the banking industry now? You think it easy to open a bank account now? All right, tell us on the next episode of Centrally Speaking.
All right, so follow Bank of Jamaica on Twitter at CentralBankJA or BOJ's Facebook page. You can also visit our website at www.boj.org.jm.
And we also invite you to send your questions. Can you please send them, please? Thank you. Send your questions on Twitter or on Facebook.
And of course, join us next week at the same time right here on your station when we will have another special guest. Thanks for watching. Centrally Speaking is a production of Bank of Jamaica.